Gather round the fire, my true crime-loving friends, because I've got a twisted honeymoon murder story that you won't believe. This one has everything. Fancy weddings, cheating, shootouts, corruption. I mean, scandals like this don't come around too often. So there was this total smoke show named Annie. I'm talking gorgeous Indian girl, smart as hell with an engineering degree, and her family was loaded. I mean, this girl had everything going for her. When Annie was 28, she met this 35-year-old British businessman named Dewani. Now, Sharon seemed like a real catch. Successful, owned a bunch of properties, and his family was rolling in money as well. After only dating for about a year and a half, Sharon pops the question, and even though Annie apparently had some doubts about this guy, she says yes. Sharon and Annie decide to have the full Indian wedding experience. We're talking a 3-day, $200,000 spectacle in Mumbai. I'm talking camels, elephants, 500 guests, just totally insane. But the pictures look beautiful, and they look happy. Here's the twist, though. Right after the wedding, Annie starts texting her friends and family about how she's thinking of divorcing Sharon, saying she made a mistake and that the guy is too controlling. But the honeymoon trip was paid for. So off to South Africa they went for their lavish getaway. Now here's where things really heat up. They take a taxi from the airport in Cape Town, and the driver is this guy named Tongo. According to Tongo, as soon as Annie goes inside the hotel, Sharon asks him to help arrange a hitman to murder his wife. He even specifies he's willing to pay 15,000 rand, which is almost 1,000 US dollars. Tongo claims he wanted nothing to do with it, but gave Sharon the number of a guy named Mies, who runs criminal stuff in the townships. But Sharon tells a totally different story. He says he simply asked Tongo to be their driver while they were in Cape Town, and that's it. So which is it? We still don't know for sure. But what we do know is CCTV footage shows them talking outside the hotel for a suspicious 9 minutes when they arrive. Is that enough time to plan your afternoon? Or your wife's murder? Later that night, Sharon leaves his phone in his hotel room and has to go back to get it. When he sees a text from Tongo, he calls him, and they talk for over 5 minutes. Why so long if Tongo was just supposed to be their tour guide? Sketchy, if you ask me. Okay, now here's where things really escalate. At 11:30 p.m., Tongo picks up Sharon and Annie from a bar to take them on an evening township tour. Because that's a normal honeymoon activity, right? Visiting dangerous slums at night? Sounds romantic. Anyway, their taxi gets ambushed by 2 gunmen, Mujeni and Kwabe. The guys steal all their stuff at gunpoint and demand Sharon get out of the car and leave Annie behind. Sharon says he begged them not to separate them, but Kwabe had a gun to his head. Next thing he knows, the taxi speeds off into the darkness with Annie still inside. About 10 minutes later, Annie was shot dead inside the abandoned taxi, left to bleed out from a hole in her neck. Her rings and purse weren't even stolen. They just took the cash and phones. Here's another twist. Sharon and Tongo's stories don't match up about what exactly happened during the hijacking, and the 2 gunmen blame each other for pulling the trigger. But police were quick to buy Tongo's version, that Sharon arranged it all as a murder-for-hire plot with Tongo as the middleman. They offer him a plea deal for cooperating as a witness against Sharon. How convenient. With Tongo's questionable testimony, Sharon becomes the prime suspect. And it doesn't help that he's actually bisexual and frequented gay fetish sites, so cops say that could have been his motive. A sex worker even testifies that Sharon had used his services for years. After years of legal battles fighting extradition to South Africa, Sharon finally stands trial in 2014, with prosecutors pushing hard for a life sentence. But here's the wildest twist of all. The hitman's stories fall apart on the witness stand. The judge sees how unreliable they are and realizes there's zero hard evidence actually linking Sharon to the crime. In the end, the case is dismissed, and Sharon walks free as an innocent man, with the judge even blasting the investigation as total garbage. Guess the cops just wanted to pin it on the outsider husband, rather than expose how dangerous their country is for tourists. So after all that, we still don't know exactly who shot Annie or why. I'm telling you, corruption in South Africa is no joke. Without those plea deals, it seemed like nobody wanted to talk. And get this, some people involved had weird stuff happen years later, like the gunman who didn't make a deal, somehow died suddenly in prison. Sketchy. Oh, and it gets crazier. The sex worker who testified Sharon was bi and hiring him behind Annie's back, found dead by hanging a few years ago. A lot of death surrounds this case. Maybe coincidence, maybe not, but clearly secrets that people didn't want revealed. Even now, over a decade later, we still have more questions than answers. After Sharon Dewani was acquitted in 2014, it seemed like he dropped out of sight for a while, trying to piece his life back together. Sharon stays out of the spotlight these days after the media frenzy surrounding his trial. Reportedly, he received death threats from people who still believe he planned Annie's murder. Wherever he is, though, he's probably just grateful his name was cleared so he can silently mourn Annie without harassment.